Hello. Welcome to Miles of Smiles Events podcast. We're talking again. Watch out. I just want to go honky tonkin every time I play that.
I love that. Uh,
Yeah, I want to go dance. I want to drink a little
it makes
beer.
me, yeah, it makes me want to move it.
Yeah, I want to go flirt a little bit and shake my booty and have somebody
Yeah.
rub it. Oh my God. I can talk dirty and never say a cuss word. I think I just exhibited that. Anyway, welcome to the Miles of Smiles Events Clearpoint Studio with Lulu Morris and Dr. Matthew Pierce. I'm in a weird mood today. You know why? Because I'm just aggravated.
I think all of us are in kind of a weird mood today, just with the things that happened early morning and just life in general.
Matthew and I both got woke up at 5 o'clock for stupid reasons. Not stupid reasons, but just it's just for bizarre reasons. Bizarre is
Cuckoo?
not stupid. So anyway, what are we talking about today? You want to tell them, Lou?
Well, we had a watcher suggest that we talk about dogma,
Hmm.
Well, I
but
don't know
my
if she watches this or not, to be honest.
she knows what's
But
going on.
she knows what's going on. That's true. She knows what's going on.
So
So,
dogma, when I think of dogma, I think of religion, but there are tons and tons of different dogmas out there. So one definition is a doctrine or body of doctrines concerning faith or morals formally stated and authoritatively proclaimed by the church. And that's the one I always think of. But it's also a point of view put forth as an authoritative without adequate grounds. And then the third definition is something held as an established opinion.
Hmm.
So, I mean,
oh,
there's still,
Facebook. You mean Facebook?
Facebook has a dogma. I mean, the political landscape right now, it's all about dogma.
right.
Okay. I mean, it's like people are saying, well, these are established facts. Well, they're only facts because you're saying that they are established facts.
Right.
Okay.
And nature that magazine nature.com,
Yeah.
they describe it as a principle or set of principles laid down by an authority and held to be incontroversial
Hmm.
truth.
Well, and let's go down the rabbit hole real quick. We always go there. So why sit on the edge like we do? Let's just jump in.
Just
You know,
jump in.
let's just jump in. A lot of the things that people debate constantly on Facebook, they may be factual. Okay, they are factual in the sense that this is a situation. It happened. That's a fact. But what was the intention behind it? And what was the proposed outcome? And how does that compare to the general interpretation? So we have the church dogma, we have politics, we just have social dogma
Mhm.
of the people that are on either side of the fence with abortion. That's a dogma because who
Hmm.
has the facts on that? Who really, has anyone been able to answer when is the true beginning of life and physically, and when is the true beginning of life spiritually? You know? So let me just say this real quick. And I'm not going to tell you what I think about abortion at the moment, but if you are spiritual based in the fact that you believe there is a being, you are a being, and this is just a body we reside in, and we go on and we perpetuate. Does it matter if this body gets killed and when it gets killed? Because we're not harming the actual being. That being, that soul, that spirit goes on. And if it's meant to survive and thrive, you won't stop it because it's supernatural energy. It's spirit, you know? So I told you we just jumped into that rabbit hole.
Both feet.
I did. I like going there though. I
Both
like
feet.
going. So take it away.
Well, that's just it. It's religion, it's politics. There are many things out there, even uh, metaphysical people or
Mhm.
Wicca people, there's a dogma. There are irrefutable rules that they operate by, and they believe in them, and they find them to be true.
Mhm.
So it's like a personal thing.
I'm kind of tired of everybody's dogmatic attitude, like the way I threw that in there. My way's the right way, and you're an asshole because you're not in my way, you
Right.
know? And okay, that's what you believe. Yeah, we all know that. We know, why we know that? Because you talk about it and you post it 10 times a day. Why do you have to keep beating it up? And if you have friends that are outside of that dogmatic circle and you want to maintain friends, maybe you ought to think about what the rest of us are thinking and feeling when you post that crap 10 times a day.
Yeah.
Well, I think that dogma also is just like um, any belief. And if you're trying to push your beliefs off on someone, that's not right.
No.
You can tell them how you believe, and they can tell you how they believe, and you can say, well, maybe we just need to agree to disagree because I'm not changing.
Well, that's the thing with dogma. I mean, it always has been steeped in, I said it, that's the way it is, and it's not going to change.
Oh, yeah.
I interchange dogma with agenda because it
Oh,
is not the thought process. I mean, like, for example, it's not about abortion. It's not about abortion. It's about who's going to get elected, who's going to be put into office, and who can agree and kiss ass the most to make sure that their candidate gets in there. It's an
But,
agenda.
but maybe there's even a better word for that, because look at what happens with that agenda. Look at the people that suffer because of that person's agenda to get elected. We
Mhm.
have deprived people the right of making their own decision. And okay, so if you don't believe abortion's right, that's great. But why are you able to make that decision for someone else? And if it's wrong, they'll pay the consequences. It's just
Yeah.
like it's wrong to kill someone. If you kill someone and it's against the law, then they'll suffer the consequences if they get caught. But I don't get to go around going, slapping your hand every time you say an ugly word, going, oh, you're hurting someone. I'm going to stop you from hurting them.
Mm.
That type of thing. Does that make sense? I mean, we have a moral obligation to prevent harm, but when does that stop? And because it's interfering with other people's right to make their own mind up.
well, I
That's
think
what,
what we
go
have,
ahead. Go
I
ahead,
think what
Luann.
we have to do is say, this is the dogma of the Catholic Church. This is the dogma of the political right. This is the dogma of the political left or the center or wherever they are. You need to define what you're talking about.
Yeah, but don't you think that people that have dogma don't think it's dogma? They just think they're right.
Yes, but
That's the problem.
it's as a group. I
Yeah.
think it has to do with as a group. And as Matthew said, maybe it's their agenda.
Well, anytime you look at it, there's an agenda behind it. Okay. Like the agenda is, okay, it's not necessarily that piece of dogma, like abortion is wrong. Okay. It's what they want to do with it. It's what, when they tout on it, it's that behind the scenes, like how is this going to affect people? Okay. It's going to affect people, I mean, that believe in abortion and then don't believe in abortion. Okay. To me, taking and trying to get an emotional response out of someone just for political gain, that's an agenda.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not about the abortion, like probably at all. Okay. I mean, because you have people out there that have had abortions. Okay. But you've also had people that are saying that abortion is wrong, that their wives had 3 or 4, but they still believe that it's wrong.
Well, it's a personal belief, I think.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
the Catholic Church puts it as the central belief.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a
not just the
tenet.
Catholic Church now, the conservative Christians do. And I don't even know. I don't think Judaism is against abortion, but I think Muslim is.
I
Of course,
don't know.
Muslim is against any kind of female rights if they're in the Middle East in an extreme country. So, but see, to me, that has nothing to do with their religion either. They're using a dogma political belief, and they're using their religion as the cover up to make it right. Because if you look at the Middle Eastern countries, they were extreme and then they came out of that extremity and now they've gone back into that extreme, you know?
Because if you were in the late 50s and 60s in Iran, their offices look just like ours.
Yeah.
The women and men were dressed appropriately for that time period.
So what's your pet peeve dogma?
Mine,
Yeah.
that you think that I need to abide by your dogma, whether I believe in your political agenda or your religion or your religious services, and I don't have to. That's my pet peeve.
Yeah, where you try to force it on other people.
Mhm.
Yeah, that bugs the hell out of me.
If I'm standing in your church asking questions and wanting to be a part of that church, that's different. Then I'm asking you to educate me toward your rules and regulations, your dogma. What is your principles, the principles of your church, of your political standing?
But I think the key statement there is that you started the conversation and
Yes.
you're asking, not
Mhm.
I'm coming to you and saying, let's have a conversation.
You're not
Well,
coming to me saying you have to believe the way I do.
Exactly.
well, and that's be, really frank here, or Betty, whatever we want to be, but if all three of us are on the extreme
Mhm.
edges of everything, um, we're not typical religious people. We're not typical sexual people. We all have extreme beliefs on, man, woman, missionary position. None of us fit into what I would call the average norm, I guess. So I think that we get to see a lot of things from a totally different perspective than maybe the average person. My big pet peeve is that people with dogma, that have that dogmatic mentality are
Mhm.
unwilling to listen to my perception while trying to cram it down my throat what theirs is. You want to believe that Santa Claus is the new coming of Jesus and, blah, 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 whatever. That's your belief. But
Mhm.
if you want to talk about it, then you're going to have to give me equal time. Otherwise, I'm not going to waste my time with you, you know? So that's what drives me nuts. And then when people will tell me specifically what's wrong with me in my life because of what I believe, that sends me over the edge. Absolutely sends me over the edge. So,
Yeah. I don't like people telling me how I should believe, or if I say, I care a great deal about you. Oh, you can't. No, you don't. How do you know? You're not inside here. You're not inside here.
This is me. I control what's right here. Okay. You have nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
okay, so take that on a more personal level. This is not about dogma, but what gets me is when someone says, if you love me, you will do this. If you love me, you will treat me this way. And I'm like, no, if you know me and you love me, you'll know I am incapable of certain things and I am not willing to do certain things. And if you want a relationship with me, you'll accept that, knowing that I will never intentionally hurt you,
Mhm.
you know?
But that right there is your personal dogma.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, there's like Luann said, there's just all types. Okay. But again, that comes down to an agenda. What's the thought behind that? Okay.
They want to control me.
Manipulation and control.
Yeah.
Yeah. This little article says dogma can be found anywhere in a
Mhm.
political belief such as fascism, progressivism, liberalism, conservatism. So it's everywhere. It's not just isolated to religion.
Oh no.
And I kind of, when I talk about it with people, that's where I go. I go to religion every time.
You do. You really do. I wonder sometimes what happened to you that the Catholic Church has hurt you so badly, because you never
Mm.
talk about anything specifically personally, but that comes up in your conversations a lot, the Catholic Church.
I would say that it's not the Catholic Church that hurt me. It was the Methodist Church that hurt me.
Ooh, ooh.
We can exchange stories on the Methodist.
And they're supposed to
Um,
be the kindest denomination out there because
well,
they dance and they drink.
I lived in a small community of 1,200 people. There were 4 or 5 main churches there, so we didn't have huge congregations. I was adopted, but I was brought into the church as a child of, they called it the cradle roll.
What?
So I was there from the moment I was born,
Oh, okay.
cradle roll. So I
Get them
was,
while they're young.
the minute I went to live with Bob and Winnie Faye Morris, I was on the cradle roll because I was a member of the Methodist Church because my mother was, my grandmother was. And I never veered anywhere else my whole life. And I just believed in the way that the dogma of that church is. I believed that way. But when my parents died, I was lost. And because I was lost, I tried to go back to church and I couldn't go without seeing my mother in the choir loft and me crying the whole hour. Now, I tried to go back several times and I tried to take a break and then go back. Nothing happened. Did the minister come and talk to me?
No.
Did the people who believed that my mother was not going to die, did they try to come and talk to me? No. Did they try to reassure me that, sometimes people have to move on? Their body has to move on. Their spirit has to move on. No, they did not.
So they were not there to sustain you spiritually, and you're very disappointed in them. Is
Yes,
that correct?
that is correct.
I can understand that.
Yeah, me too.
I mean,
Me
I
too.
had been there from the moment I was brought into the family, and I grew up there, and I just was, it wasn't until like 10 years down the road that I went, wait a minute. Did these
So
people
I got
try
a
to
question for you though. I got a question for you though. This is a double-edged question. It may bite me in the butt, but I want to ask it anyway. Do you think that the reason that they did not talk to you was that they didn't know that you needed help? Hear out everything I have to say, or they were incapable of knowing what to do, and that the part of the disconnect is that because they were older and you saw them as an established community that they should have known and maybe they didn't know what to do?
I guess my thought process is if you go to church and you're trying to be in church and participate and you can't without crying, there's something wrong.
Mhm.
Did they not see me cry?
Yeah, but
I,
who is they? Who is they though? That's
the
the question.
older the members, like the members that were my mother's age and my grandmother's age, I spent tons of time with them in ladies' circles, in Bible study, in we had tons
They
of
seem
little,
older and wiser to you.
yeah, I
They were
did.
older.
They were, I
Okay,
thought they were. I thought
okay.
they were. I thought they were older and wiser and invested in bringing the church to a good place.
Well, what I have discovered is that just because they're older, they're not wiser. And a lot of times they're even more backwards because they have not kept up with illuminating information that we get as we get more aware. Um, and I've been in your shoes, so I
Mhm.
get where you're coming from. But my personal experiences is that I was disappointed because I had expectations, and I'm at a place now where I still think that some of the leadership of the church should know better and be obligated because that's their job. That to hold the whole congregation accountable is unreasonable. That's where I have gotten.
Well, and when you're sitting in the front row, practically, the minister can see you, the assistant minister, the choir can see you, the members of the choir that were friends with my mother. I mean, no one reached out to me.
Okay. So I'm not going to go into details, but of all the people that you know, who would have done what happened yesterday?
Yesterday? Oh,
Oh, yeah. How many people you know that would have done something?
wow.
If you want to discuss it, you can, but I'm not going to discuss it unless you
Uh,
want to. But it's a good example.
the good example is that I was just playing around with Facebook. Now, I've had a very tumultuous 4 months and been severely depressed. So now I've gotten some help and I'm not as depressed as I was. I have days just like anybody else, but
Mhm.
now I feel like I'm in a good place. I'm not constantly trying to think of a way to get out of this mortal coil. So I was playing around with Facebook and I was trying to find some settings, and it talked about legacy settings where if you die, someone else has charge of your Facebook. I thought, oh, I'm going to put Deborah there. Uh, you know, why not? I should do that while I'm thinking. So she, so she
Before I'm
got,
dead.
so she got a notice that I did that. Saturday night, I went to a movie and I turned off my phone. Sunday, I did not turn my phone back on after the movie. So I set that little thing for Facebook. She got the notification. So she called me and couldn't get me. She texted me and couldn't get me. And she called me again and couldn't get me. And she called Matthew and Matthew said, haven't heard from her. And so because of my planning to leave my mortal coil over the last 4 months, which I have discussed with Deborah, she showed up at my front door. And I was like, what does she do? What's going on?
I got
Why
breakfast
are you
out of
here?
it.
So she comes in and she goes, why did you make me the legacy thing? And then you don't answer your phone. I thought something terrible had happened. And I was like, I am so sorry that I did that. I had to hug her and apologize because she was distraught. Now, I don't know many people that would do that.
Does that
And
make them bad people? No.
no, it doesn't make them bad people, but it then the people you know the best, right, are the ones that should be checking on you.
Mhm.
But the reason I brought that up is that a lot of people wouldn't know what to do in those
No.
circumstances, or they would be afraid of making a mistake or looking foolish, or might be afraid of walking in and finding a dead body and not knowing how to deal with that. I mean, all kinds of things.
Right.
So that's why I go back to where we have, because you and I were raised a lot in the same way of recognizing people of being an authority
Mhm.
and being and trusting them, or we were told that we should at least follow them, and
Mhm.
allow them to do their job. And what I have found is that very few people in my life have done their job. Very few people. And so to carry that thought through, we had a circumstance with our church 10 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago, where I went to the authorities of the church. We had a problem in our Bible study group in my home with our group. And I didn't expect them to act any better because they're all idiots and they're people like me. But I did go to the church leadership and say, I need you to lead. I need you to be a voice of authority. And they told me they couldn't get involved. And that's when I left the church again. I've done it many times, but that was the last time I left. So I think we have to have expectations, and I think that we have to know what we can count on. But I think that we also have to have a measuring stick of realism because we are
Mhm.
dealing with very fallible, very flawed people.
But you know, at the time when I was 20, and trying to go to church and couldn't, I really didn't think about how someone probably should ask me if they can
Yeah,
help. You know,
exactly. Because you
I
weren't
had
wise either.
no, I didn't have that expectation. I thought I've got to handle this. I didn't handle it well at all. But I keep thinking if it was my friend coming to church crying every day, that I would at least try to reach out to them and say, what can I help you with? You know, what is it that, why do you come to church? Everything, you're smiling and everything's fine, but you sit down in church and then you cry for an hour. What has triggered that? I mean, my cousins who know when my parents died, I went to an uncle's funeral and I said, you know, you're going to do the memorial here at home, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just going to leave for a little while and I'll come back a little bit later to visit with you guys. And she said, have you had a bad experience with funerals? I'm 20 years old and I've buried both my parents. What do you think?
Well, a lot of people don't find funerals as a bad experience, though.
But I
I
mean,
understand
you
that
can't
question.
really you can't really say, because I mean, if she was 20 years old, she never really had experience with funerals, and she's right in the center of it. What right do you have to say that to her?
Well, I don't
I
think you have a right, but I understand the question.
Well,
You, you know,
but by the time they asked that question, I was 40.
well, still,
oh, but see,
And
here's
I
the thing.
said, and that's what I said to them. I said, I was 20 years old, 21 years old, and I had already buried both of my parents.
Funerals are weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Some people find them very comforting.
Mm-hmm.
Some people find them very traumatizing, like in
Mm-hmm.
your experience. I think they're ridiculous. I only go to funerals to support someone that's going to a funeral that needs emotional support.
Mm-hmm.
They give me no satisfaction, no closure. They, I know I'm weird. As I get older, I really am starting to accept how weird I am. But I don't see the point in funerals, and they don't help me.
I think one of the best experiences I had was we had a private service at the graveside and buried our loved one. You know, these were all people that were the immediate family, and there was no one else invited, but just the immediate family. And the loved one was buried. And then we all went to a large venue for kind of like a celebration of life. And to celebrate that person had passed and how the effect they had on our life. And for me, it was a lot less emotional. There wasn't that it's a horrible thing.
What about you, Matthew? What's the deal with you and funerals?
you know what? I mean, once I started subscribing to, Wicca and, paganism and things like that and other world religions, you know, I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea of funerals. Okay. I know with Wicca, it's, there's rituals for this kind of thing when a person crosses. And for me, I know that it's the next emanation. It's the next step into the process. And so, would I mourn for the person? Yeah, absolutely. I would mourn for the person. Okay. But likewise, I also know that, there's healing on the other side. There's also, the sense of ascension on the other side. There's this feeling of that, they're never really leaving us. I mean, and that's the reason why, the Wicca, just the spirituality of Wicca appeals to me, because there's times in the year that we celebrate those who have crossed.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have a whole holiday
Mm-hmm.
that is surrounded, I mean, around people who have crossed. You know, we actually put up a mirror and we go and we say our goodbyes and our hellos, you know, and I mean, that's inside of a ritual. And
It's
the
almost like Day of the Dead.
yeah, yeah,
I don't get
you know,
that either.
but you come together. I mean, and it's like we put up pictures of our loved ones who have crossed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we bring like some of their favorite foods. You know, we bring out like cookies and you know, and I mean, one person had a recipe for hot toddies that their grandmother used to make, and I'll tell you what, they were great. They were really, really good. But it was a whole celebration and remembrance that they're still with us.
Yeah.
See, I could tell from your face that that is beautiful for you when you're
Yeah.
talking about it. You could, I don't get it. I'm just being honest. I don't get it. And you know, I've been to funerals, and then I've had many loved ones that died that I did not go to their funeral because
Mhm.
one of the things I didn't want to do is go to a funeral and listen to someone that didn't know them very well talk about them and tell things about them. The other thing is that I didn't want to go to funerals and listen to people that they had friendships with, but they had totally different experiences with them than I did, because I always feel like the deep relationships I have, that I get a secret piece of that person that most people don't see. And I don't like having that tainted or demoralized or ignored. And so I get no satisfaction out of listening to other people talk about the person. And the two funerals that impacted me the most was, of course, the one for my husband and the one for my brother. And the one for my husband, I was like, what is going on here? It was like I was at a funeral of a stranger. And I mean, it was just ridiculous. And it actually made my grief deeper, because it made me so sad to think that nobody could say anything that showed that they really knew who he was. And I wasn't allowed to speak because the family didn't like me. And then I did the eulogy at my brother's funeral, and it nearly killed me. I'll be honest, it nearly killed me. I mean, it incapacitated me emotionally for quite a while. Um, I'm a very private griever, but part of it is because I don't know. I think about the people that have been in my life all the time, and songs and foods, like you were talking about with the hot toddy
Yeah.
recipes and stuff. And I think about them all the time, but I don't like sharing my grief with other people. It's very personal. And the grief is not sad all the time. Sometimes it's very happy, but it's still a part of the grief, because I'm not grieving for them and their loss. I'm grieving for mine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my loss. My loss is them. They're in a great place. I
Well,
know they are.
I think that my problem was maybe twofold. One, I had members of the church that I respected, that were elders, and one lady in particular that I idolized, and she told me, you just keep praying, your mother's going to get well, she's going to come home. And I heard this from her over and over and over again. And of course, my dad didn't really say that, but he inferred that things were going to be okay. So here's what I want to know. Why don't we start training or instructing or doing our due diligence for our children to help them understand death before
Well,
they have
because
to
the
experience
ignorant cannot teach the ignorant.
it?
It's church dogma. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Okay. It's like, and I will tell you, like right up front, okay, I went to the conclave of the Methodist Church. Okay. The
Mhm.
big conclave where they were making decisions about how the church should like do certain things.
Mhm.
Okay. I mean, I was there when they were voting on whether or not the Methodist Church should be allowed to marry gay couples.
Right.
Okay. One of the things that they actually talked about is how to handle like funeral services and death. And it all comes up from a dogma. You know,
Mhm.
it's like, well, the Bible says, and then you hear the whole conclave going, that's right, that's right, that's right. And then they just fall in line, which completely and totally irritated me.
Well, you know, my my grandmother was 99 when she passed, and I always thought that my aunt had her cremated, and I said, I don't think grandmother would have been happy with that.
Mhm.
She is from the old part of our religion that says we should be buried in the ground. Well, we're going to bury her in the ground. I said, yes, I understand that, but that's not what she means. I mean, what I
Yeah.
mean is she wants her body intact.
Yeah, but who cares? You're dead. I mean,
Well,
seriously.
I know
I think they
that.
should make my body into a diamond. They have this way where they can take your body and compress it so hard that it
Mhm.
turns you into a diamond. And I'm thinking, you know what? That is the most practical thing besides a tree that I have ever heard. And we could start a family brooch and have everybody turned into a diamond and just keep adding diamonds to that brooch. Now that's practical. And you pass it on to the firstborn female in each generation. I think that's a great idea. But we've had to deal with this issue as a family and make decisions because my granddaughter lost her mother when she was 7. And then her best friend just died last week, and she's only 14. And
Mm.
my son and I are texting back and forth because he's at work and he goes, do I tell her? Do I wait? And I'm like, no, you got to tell her now. I said, if you don't tell her now, she'll never trust an adult ever again.
Mhm.
And I said, he goes, but I don't have all the information. And I said, I understand that, but you tell her what you know. The little girl's mother told you, and now you need to tell Scarlett because it's her friend. And, and so how many children are allowed to go to funerals? How many children are allowed to go and see sick parents when they're dying and stuff? And I can't even tell
Was
you
it?
what Scarlett said to her mother because I'll just bust out crying. But she said the most beautiful thing I've ever heard a human being say to another human being that was dying. And if we could teach that to everybody, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. We just wouldn't,
Well,
you know.
that's what I mean by being involved in your with your children in very emotional times, you know.
Well, I remember the first funeral I went to, I was 8, I think. We had a family friend that his name was Pete, and he adored me, and he had ponies outside of town, and we used to go and ride horses and ponies at his place all the time. And he was a good friend of my dad, and he died. And I remember going to that funeral, and I remember sitting there as an 8-year going, that's not him. Why are we here? What is the point of this? And I'm sure that set my whole tone. And of course, a lot of that had to do with my spiritual awareness, that not knowing that's what it was. But I'm like, that's a body. Why are we that? And I actually thought, well, I just thought it was silly. That's not him. It's sad. I miss him. I'm gonna miss seeing him. I'm gonna miss riding the ponies. But why are we looking at this? And I wasn't grossed out. I wasn't afraid. I would just did not get the point. And I had to sit still in this uncomfortable dress and listen to people talk. I'm like, Pete wasn't like that. Pete was funny. And Pete, and so it did. It set my whole attitude for funerals. I know it did. And I didn't go to my grandparents' funerals. I didn't go to any of them. Everybody thinks I'm terrible, but it wouldn't
Well,
have accomplished anything.
my grandmother didn't go to my grandfather's funeral because she's very frail and she didn't think that she could get through physically.
Well, when
So
my dad died 2 years ago, they didn't even have a funeral for him.
yeah.
I was
So
shocked.
I stayed with grandmother. That was where my loyalty was because she's still above ground.
Well, you got to support the living. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. So, like,
And
when Scott's parents die, I'll go to those funerals because he'll need me. He'll need me, and I'll be there for him. I wouldn't go otherwise, you know. We're having cake and bourbon when I die, just so y'all know. Y'all should outlive
Okay.
me. We're gonna play Eddie Izzard's Cake or Death,
Make your death.
and we're gonna have a big party potluck, and I'm going to have a big sign that says, cake or death. Deborah had death today. You get cake.
Everybody else has cake.
So yeah, I think that it's more appropriate to either have the person buried in a private ceremony in the cemetery, if that's what you want to do, or cremation or whatever it is, and then have a celebration of that person's life and what they meant to you.
Well, see, even those are hard on me because I hear people saying things. I'm like, that's bullshit.
But everybody does that because they think they're supposed to.
Yeah. I mean, well,
Um,
that's their experience too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about what was the funeral that I remember? What was the funeral that I remember? And I remember one vividly that it was, God, I was probably 6, 7 years old.
ooh,
And
ooh.
my dad took me to a funeral of someone that died in the church, and it was something that we just had to do. And he, I asked him what death was, and he told me it's like when someone's spirit leaves their body and, goes to heaven. Well, 7-year-old kid, they're like, okay, I get it. I understand it, you know. But then he like would go out, I mean, he went up to view the body and I went with him. Okay. And I looked at him, I said, why are we having a funeral if he's not there?
Exactly. Thank you very much. Children get it.
Why are we,
Children get
yeah.
it.
It's like, and so I had this big conversation with my father, and I remember from a very young age just thinking that funerals were stupid because it's not for the person, it's for
The
everybody
family.
else.
It's for
Can I
the
get an
family.
amen?
Yes, you can. Because I don't want that sort of thing for myself
Hmm.
when I pass.
I got a funny funeral story though. I got to tell you this. I have two of them actually. They're hilarious. One is when my stepdad died. Okay. His children showed up and he hadn't seen his children in years and years and years and years. And they're back there making rude comments about my mom and stuff. And they're getting ready to leave. And this is at an old country cemetery out in Carthage with the dirt roads, and all the dirt paths and everything. And I forget what they said or whatever, but they said something rude and then they take off walking real fast. Well, my brother takes off running after them and he's throwing rocks at them and stuff. And they're trying to, and I'm yelling at Scott. I'm like, go stop my brother before he kills somebody. All right. And that's when I was really huge. So I'm waddling down the road trying to catch up with everybody and going, everybody stop, everybody stop. And the people are sitting under the canopy in the tent just watching all this. And so they get in their car and they peel out on that dirt road and they take off. So Scott and my brother and I turn around and we come back. And I'm trying to straighten myself up and fix my hair. And I walked up to the preacher and the woman that was singing, like nothing had happened. I said, well, that was just a beautiful service. And I just appreciate your music so much. And mother looks at me, she goes, well, Suzanne Sugarbaker, when did you show up? I mean, but the whole thing was just so stupid. Absolutely stupid, you know. And then we were talking to the funeral director later, and he goes, have you ever noticed how Baptist hymnals sound like Irish singing songs? And he walks with me and he talks with me. That got stuck in my head. And
Hey, I'll tell you what, if you think that's bad, go to a Pentecostal meeting.
Oh God.
oh, yeah. My grandmother was Pentecostal. So fast forward several years, and we're at my aunt's funeral. And my mother and I, being family, are on the front row with the rest of her children and stuff because mother was her sibling. And the very first song that comes on, and he walks, and I went like that, and mother's nudging me, and the next thing you know, I start laughing, and I'm trying to not look like I'm laughing, so I've got to clean it over my face, covering my face, and I'm just laughing even harder because mother's doing this to me. I had to get up and leave the auditorium. I couldn't stop laughing. So I'm no good at funerals. I'm just no
Well,
good.
myself and my three aunts, okay, when my grandfather died on my mother's side, okay, they asked us to leave. because we got the giggles. And it was just, I mean, they were telling jokes that my grandfather used to tell, and they just got funnier and funnier and funnier and funnier. And we just like were cracking up, you know.
I love
And the
it.
nurse says, we think that this is inappropriate, so I think you should all leave.
It is an inappropriate response. However, when have you known a better time to tell his jokes and laugh at them?
And
Mhm.
it's not inappropriate. It's the perfect time.
It's the perfect time. Yeah,
Yeah,
and this,
exactly.
it's how we chose to deal with, whatever grieving process we were going
Mhm.
through or what have you. I mean, it's like however you grieve is how you grieve. However I grieve is how I grieve. Okay. It just happened to be that, we weren't there invested in, like holding on. We
Yes.
were there that we were like, okay, we know that it was going to happen. We knew that that he was going to pass, you know? And so I guess they had the same thought I did. It was like, why are we here? This is for everybody else. This isn't really for us because we knew it was
No,
going to happen.
no. So let's go to political dogma real quick before we close out the show. Because, I mean, I'm sure people think we've just been morbid as hell today, death and dying and funerals and all this other good stuff. But dogma, politics. Luann and I went to see the movie Civil War and we freaked out. Freaked out
We
because it
actually
was
went to
so
the
realistic.
theater. The theater we went to was called the HXD,
Okay, yeah.
which gets you immersed in gunfire and bombs.
Yeah, the seats shake and the screen's so big that you feel like you're involved in the action at times. And looking at our circumstances in this country, I'm like, you know what? It just takes one or two little steps forward for us to be in that condition, in that situation. And I don't get horrified at movies. I can watch pretty much anything and go, it just rolls off my back. I love zombies and vampires and werewolves and stuff. But that horrified me, absolutely horrified me because I saw the reality of it. Not the reality of the shooting, the reality of the circumstances that took us to that place with the Civil War. And it's not even just so much the Civil War, it was the lack of morals and people doing whatever the heck they wanted to. You had your military, but then you had your vigilantes that use that as an excuse to do whatever. And, I'm just like, okay, maybe I could be dogmatic about not having a civil war. What do we do
It,
not to do that?
when there was the conflict on the Texas border and the troops from Washington went down there, I thought, oh God, please, no,
Mhm.
no in misstep, because I could just see troops exchanging gunfire and they're on the same side. So it really upset me. And that movie was very thought-provoking, upsetting. You felt like you were right in the White House and with all the shrapnel on the floor and in the walls, and it's just not supposed to be that way.
Mm-mm. And I don't think that I ever, until recently, thought that that could ever be a possibility in this country. And now I do see
Mhm.
that there is a road of circumstances that could make that a possibility.
I believe it. That's what made it so scary.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you thinking, Matthew?
What this is one of those topics that just from study and, about how people react to things and so on and so forth, I do think it's an agenda. I mean, I'm right there, but I think that the agenda is so harmful right now, okay? And it's being pushed so much that yeah, civil war is, and I mean, it's there. I mean, the idea of it is there, okay? I mean, I have friends that were down at the border and where they're saying, "Oh, here's a problem, here's a problem, here's a problem." He went to that park. I mean, he like video called me, he FaceTimed me, and he goes, and this is what they're talking about. There was nothing. Okay, those troops that went down there from Florida and everything else like that, they stayed for 6 hours because there was nothing there. And the media shows you all of these like huge crowds and just, bunches and bunches of people and everything else like that. That's not the case. That's not the case. There's video from a person that lived on the Mexico side that was taking pictures like across where they were saying this is where they're crossing. No one.
Well, the thing that got me thinking is that I thought, well, if everyone saw this movie, it would maybe really make them think very powerfully about how they're going to vote
Yeah.
and the impact of that. And then I got to thinking, but then if they're really wrapped up in a huge dogma, it might just reinforce them to vote in the way that they're continuing to think right now. So, I mean, I don't know if the movie will hurt or help or even make a difference in the idea of we have a huge responsibility in who we put in office, not just in the presidency, but in our Congress and our House of Representatives and the Senate and our state positions, because now they're even people are backing up saying, well, this should be a federal issue. Now they're saying, well, this should be a state issue and the state
Mhm.
should decide.
I think that's always been a problem. What's a
Yeah.
state issue? What's a federal issue?
Well, I mean,
But
and I mean, even so, I mean, we shove it back to the states. Okay, there's an issue with that because we've already found out that if a state has an issue with a federal law, they don't follow it. They're like, okay.
Well, our original Civil War was over state issues. As far
Mhm.
as a lot of the people that lived then were concerned, the North, predominantly called it the Civil War. The South predominantly called it the war between the states. That's kind of been forgotten and left out of the new history books, which I think is
Mhm.
interesting, you know. And so, the whole thing is that again, talk about Matthew's agenda. People will say the war was about slavery. Well, there are other people say the war was about economy and how slavery affected the economy. It was not a moral issue about slavery, it was about an economic issue of slavery. Two different agendas, two different intentions with the same ideology and results as far as the process,
Mhm.
which it's kind of like this is just a pet peeve of mine. It's like, oh, all the Christian holidays are just pagan holidays they took over. Well, no, if you read the original intent of what Christianity was and was taught, is that Christians were supposed to make the people around them comfortable. So if they ate meat, you were supposed to eat meat. If they ate sacrificial meat from their god and goddesses altars, you ate it. If they sacrificed to their gods and goddesses and didn't eat it, then you didn't. And it was an expansion of that idea of making people stay comfortable in their environment, but talking to them about the love of God. That's a different intention of like, oh, we're just going to go over there and we're going to inundate them with our ideology and we're going to trick them because we're going to take their holidays and then show them how it's Christian. And that may have happened. I'm not saying it didn't, but the original intention was not based on that.
Deborah, it did
What?
happen. So, and I'll just agree to disagree with you, okay?
I
Because I
agree with
mean,
Matthew.
the history shows that the reason that those holidays were moved all around and so on and so forth, even with historical proof, okay, was so the church could get people taxed.
I'm not talking about the church, we're talking about Christians. There's a difference. Listen to my intention here. Listen to
Okay,
what I'm
but
talking about.
here's the
The
thing,
original
you're not
intention.
taking it back to the original sentiment. Okay, you're telling me there's a sentiment there of how Christians should be acting. Okay, well, the thing is, it wasn't until Martin Luther came around that that idea of being separated from the church actually became a reality.
That's not what I'm
And that's
saying.
when people, well, that's what I'm saying, because there was, this all happened before the idea of Christianity.
But what I'm saying, Matthew, is you have to separate the church and the idea of church and the idea of Christianity, because I'm not denying, I am admitting the church has bastardized the intention of Christianity. They've bastardized it. And that's what frustrates me is don't clump. It's kind of like saying all Muslims are terrorists. That's not true. Not all Christians are out to get you because you're pagan, you know? And there's a difference in Christian beliefs and church dogma. And that's my whole point. And somehow or another,
And
all of this gets thrown into a stew pot and we're going to serve it up as one big stew. And it's not the same. It's not the same, which is why I could be a Christian and not belong to a church.
well, likewise, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about. Okay, because the Methodists have a dogma, the Presbyterians have a dogma, the Baptists have a
Mhm.
dogma, the Pentecostals have a dogma. Okay. And the thing is, okay, they all consider themselves Christian. And so it's really depending on where you want to fall inside of that.
And I don't fall anywhere inside that, you
And
know,
that's
and
that's great. That's great. But the
so,
thing is, I have this problem with people saying, oh, well, Christianity is separate, somehow separate, from, being Catholic. Or, I'm sorry, there is a huge difference between Catholic and Christian. Okay, that's been my experience. As much as there is between Christian and pagan. That's
or
how I feel.
Mormon,
Yeah, or Mormon or whatever
Latter-day
other.
Saints, they're all very different.
Absolutely,
They
absolutely.
all,
And so, it's I don't know. I'm not. It's not necessarily a sticky point for me, because I'm of the opinion is like, you know what? If you want to believe that, that's up to you. Go ahead. That's great. I don't have an idea otherwise. I mean, I've been to, Mormon, not the Mormon temple, but, quote unquote gathering. I've been to, the Krishna temple. I've been to, a Buddhist monastery. I've been to all these things and I've received something from every single one of them.
sure.
Okay.
Same here. Same here. I get
So,
that. That's why I hate labels. I hate,
mhm,
and I don't ever ask anybody what their religion is. I don't want to know what your religion is. I'm hoping you're going to tell me you don't have a religion. I'm hoping what you're going to do is tell me what you believe in.
yeah.
What defines you? What do you believe in? You know? And I found out just recently that a really good friend of mine that I thought for almost 27 years was pagan, and he does not identify as pagan. He identifies as Christian mystic. Color me stupid. I really felt silly. I had no idea. Had no idea that's how he identified, you know, because the only thing I'd ever seen him in relationship to was rituals that were pagan based. So, you know, I just I hate labels. I just hate labels, which is why I resist them. But you have to at some point go, I got to have a little bit of a label to give somebody a point of reference where we can have a meeting ground. And that's what I have struggled with all my life. All my life. You know, because otherwise I'm going to be passing out pamphlets. Here's what I believe in. Here's what I believe in. Here's what I believe
This
in.
is
You have
for
time
your
to read it?
information. This is what I believe in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, please take time to read it if you want to know me. Otherwise, throw it away. I don't care.
Here's my card. There's a QR code on it. Go ahead and follow it, and you can find
Exactly.
out all about me.
Exactly. I love it. We should do that.
Read at your leisure.
And in 10 years, make sure you check back because I'm sure it's going to be changed in 10 years.
Oh, I'm actually going to have that QR code put on my gravestone.
That's a great idea. I love that.
take it and scan it, find out about me. I'm going to post funny videos.
All right. Do we have a closing point of view that we want to share?
I just kind of want to say this. It is like as different and as vast the ideas as the three of us have. Okay, we're a perfect example. You can make it work. You can agree to not. Just disagree. Okay, I'm not going to try to say here. I need for you to like believe me, or I need for you to believe in the same thing I do. I hope you don't. I really hope you don't. When my friends come to me and they're like, "Oh, well, would you come to, like church with me?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's go."
Why not?
In fact, okay, I'm going to tell you a little story just in closing really quick, okay? I went to visit my father, okay, and I grew up in the Pentecostal church, okay. I went to school, I have training, I'm a witch. I mean, let's just
Mm.
call it like it is. I'm a witch. And so I went to church with my dad. I went to a Pentecostal church, okay. And I was in there, I was singing the songs and I was praising and I was raising my hands, like Pentecostals do, you know. And so I was there, and my dad had a problem with me saying that I was acting like I was Pentecostal.
What?
And I'm like, Dad, I'm not acting. I was like, because I'm expressing myself. Okay. Now I might have different views of what, this spirituality is. I was like, but I remember my upbringing. I remembered the joy that I felt. And I was like, and so I'm just doing it for me. I was like, this is my personal experience. And I was like, I'm sorry if you have a problem with that,
That's
you know?
weird. But
So
I think it's normal. I think not normal. I think it's average. I think it's an average attitude that we have to get in a box and stay there, you know? And I'm going to disagree with you, and you're going to laugh when you hear how I'm disagreeing with you. I think that we're a perfect example of how easy it can be.
yeah,
You know, I don't
that's
understand
not,
why it
I
has
would
to be
not
difficult.
disagree with that. I would say that I would totally agree with that.
I don't know why it has to be difficult. I mean, I, and I don't understand why everyone that I talk to lately is so adamant about me hearing what they say and agreeing with it. You know, I don't understand that. And I just don't understand it. That's all I can say. And so
So,
talking but among the three of us is easy because we can go round and round and we can meet in the middle and we pull out the points where we do agree. And really, Matthew, you and I disagree on very little,
No, we
you
don't.
know, you
Yeah,
know,
because we can see the common ground.
and so again, I mean, the Christian church is awful. I'm the first one to say it. I love God. I love Jesus. I love the fact that I have the Holy Ghost in me. I love the spiritual gifts I have. I am so sad that I can't find a community of like-minded people that are in alignment 100% with what I believe in. But I could go to a Pentecostal church and bite chicken heads off and raise my hands and feel really comfortable all day long, you know? But the problem I would have is that when they start speaking in tongues, I know who's faking. And that would trouble me. That would trouble me.
you know what troubles me is there was someone in my graduating class that was tending to the spirituality of someone else in my class that was Catholic.
Hmm.
And the other man was Baptist, and he asked the Catholic, who was very ill and going to pass, do you believe in Jesus? He goes, well, yeah. So, do you want me to pray for you? Well, yeah. What is it that someone who's in a Protestant religion telling a Catholic, do you believe in Jesus? Have you ever been to a Catholic church? I'm sorry. Are there not 12 Stations of the Cross that talk about Jesus?
Well, why do
And
they not consider Catholics to be Christians? I haven't ever
I
really
don't know,
understood that.
because I was just thinking, I I don't he was Catholic all of his life. He started as a child, an infant. He was on the cradle roll.
Hmm.
So
Exactly.
I cannot believe someone of a Protestant faith would think that someone who's Catholic would not know Jesus.
Well, even Mormons, here's what's weird. I know quite a few Mormons, and they are some of the kindest, most loving, giving people I've ever met on the face of this earth.
Mhm.
And they're Christians because they do believe in Jesus Christ as the Son of God. They just have a lot of other things that they bring to the table. I'm like, wow, that's weird. I don't get it. And they wear special underwear and, they used to believe in polygamy, but now they don't, but some do. And, there's a lot of weird things going on in the Mormon religion. But also with the Latter-day Saints, there's a lot of weird stuff going on but they still believe in Christ. Don't they believe in Christ? I'm pretty sure they do, you know? It seems like I've been to the church a couple times and we talked about Christ there. So I don't understand how the Protestant sector of Christianity thinks that everybody else is not a Christian. That boggles and bothers my mind.
Dogma and agenda.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say about dogma is that because I don't believe exactly like you does not mean that I don't believe in forgiveness and Jesus and all those things, the basic things we agree on. I just
Well, let me throw this out here as our closing point because this will rock a lot of people. I don't think very many people know that King James was a real person. The King James Bible. It's a real person. He was Queen Elizabeth's relative. I don't know if that was it wasn't her son because she was not married, but cousin, whatever he was to Queen Elizabeth. All right. He was married. Yeah, he was married. He had children. He was also a sodomite. And he has written the most popular, or he had it written, the most popular version of the Bible ever out there. Okay. Why do I bring this up? Am I mocking the Bible? No. Am I mocking God? No. In fact, it's just the opposite. I'm glorifying God because King James and myself both are perfect examples of how God can take anybody with all of their horrible foibles and misconceptions and turn them into a tool of good. That's my point. And if you don't believe that God can do all that stuff, what do you really believe in? That's my point.
Point well taken.
I'm gonna pass the plate now. I'm preaching good. So
I won't donate.
well, I don't. You do. You just don't. You just don't give me your checkbook. You donate.
well,
Just by being here, you're donating.
and I think that if more people would not try to change your mind or my mind, and would just be happy that they believe, why can't we find a common ground?
Right.
Well, you know what? We have a common ground. It's called humanity, and we step away from it. That's the bottom line. And put that on a t-shirt, Matthew.
Well,
Find your
this is
humanity.
my bottom line.
Yeah.
Humanity is my bottom line.
Humanity is the bottom line. Don't step away from it. Don't step off of it. So, all right, Lou, tell them how to find you. That new website.
You can email me at Luann at Ancient Herbal Apothecary, or you can go to my website at www.ancientherbalapothecary.com, which I think I've got a few tweaks to do, but I'm going to try to publish it this week. Make sure it's live.
Live from New York.
Live. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. People are looking forward to it. I've been telling everybody about your product and everything like that. And by the way, thank you so much for the samples.
Aren't they great?
Love them.
They are amazing. They really are amazing. But just a shout out to you, Luann. You did a fantastic job with the formulas, and they really work. They really work.
That's what I want.
I love the fact that I get to be a consultant, so I can say, "Could you try this?" And she'll mix me up something special. I love feeling special.
People don't understand that I would do a lot of that.
Yeah.
A consultation is free, a formula is not. But
yeah. But you're customizing it to their specific needs. And
Correct.
that's what makes it all the more valuable. Plus, you have a standard that you follow, where you don't use non-GMO, it's like all of those things,
Well,
ethically
I'm
sourced.
constantly learning about things like we did I'm working on the pain
Mhm.
cream, what am I, Miracle Lotion,
Okay.
Miracle Life Lotion. Anyway, it's for pain. And I did find out through extensive research that essential oils of turmeric do not carry the coumarin
Yep.
over, but the extract of turmeric does.
And we have some of Luann's podcast on the Miles to Smiles channel on YouTube, talking about the different herbs and stuff. And we're going to be adding some more of those as we go along. We kind of got distracted, and we're going to start doing those more because we've been trying to build our businesses and stuff.
Yep.
So, but we're going to get back to doing that. All right, Dr. Pierce, you got a lot going on.
I have a lot of stuff going on. So you can get a hold of me personally at matthew@matthewapierce.com, and the website is matthewapierce.com. That's my personal website, and so you can read my blog posts and sign up for psychic readings, etc., etc. My business is connectionsdesignstudios.com, and it's Matthew@connectiondesignstudios.com. You can also reach me at metaphysicalevents.com. So I got lots of stuff going on, and I have 3 other businesses that I'm getting ready to launch. And so, it's moving and shaking.
I understand that. So I am Deborah Colleen Rose, and I've been doing private investigations for over 30 years. And I thought, oh, I'm going to close that this year. Not happening. We just added a new service, and what we have found is that people need protection for their elderly. They need to do due diligence on their caretakers. They need to do due diligence and have regular checks and balances for internet systems and bank accounts and properties, especially if they have a personal assistant that's with them constantly. And we just got through working on one of those cases where the person stole over $300,000 from the gentleman. So we're up in our ante here with that service. So isgu.com. Contact us if you need to know something. We help you make good decisions. If you need to make even better decisions, DeborahColleenRose.com for spiritual coaching. Got to have that information from all realms. And then, of course, our sponsor, milesofsmilesevents.com. Inspired, intuitive entertainment. We are not card readers. We are readers of the world. We have all kinds of information, and we can do this in so many ways. But the key is that we are entertainers first at parties, and we bring our special gifts to make it special and personalized just for you and your guest. So stay tuned for more. We're talking again. Watch out, and we will see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.